The twin suns of Veralia were setting, painting the alien sky in deep gold and crimson. Captain Ryan Halley stood at the edge of the scarred valley, his boots sinking slightly into the red dust. The air was heavy, full of the smell of wild plants, and the faint metallic taste of danger behind him. The alien village of Kuratao was quiet, too quiet. Even the children had stopped playing, their large black eyes following Ryan with a mixture of fear and awe. The chief of the tribe, an old alien with skin like cracked stone. "Step forward, human," the chief said slowly. "Do not go there." His voice trembled slightly though. His people considered him the bravest among them. "The one that lives there is not prey, it is death itself." Ryan's jaw tightened. He had heard the story since arriving on Veralia weeks ago. The Vorath, a creature so fast it could snatch a man before he could blink. So strong it could crush bones like dry sticks. So cunning it could vanish into shadows, even in the brightest daylight. Every hunter who had tried to face it had vanished. No body, no weapon, no trace. Only the echo of a scream and the silence that followed. The scarred valley itself was a graveyard of failed hunts. Alien weapons lay rusting in the dirt, claw marks gouged into stone. Some rocks even bore black stains that no rain could wash away. "You should not challenge it," the chief repeated, his dark eyes fixed on Ryan. "Your people may be strong, but strength is nothing before the Vorath." Ryan's lips curled into a small smile. "I'm not here to challenge it," he said. "I'm here to catch it." The villagers gasped, some stepping back as if his words alone might anger the beast. A young alien woman shook her head and whispered to her friend, "He does not understand. He will not come back." Ryan had been many things in his life: soldier, survivalist, and explorer. But more than anything, he was stubborn. When people told him something was impossible, he felt a fire inside him. He had not traveled halfway across the galaxy to be told to stay safe. That night, while the village prepared for rest, Ryan prepared for the hunt. He checked his gear: a coil of strong rope, a bone knife gifted by one of the alien hunters, a few strips of dried meat. No guns, no advanced human tech. If he was going to catch this thing, he wanted to do it with his own strength. The scarred valley loomed in the distance, a jagged wound in the earth, its cliffs blackened as if burned long ago. Strange sounds drifted from within: low growls, snapping branches, the distant rush of water. Ryan stepped forward, his boots crunching over stones. As he entered the valley, the air grew colder. Thick vines hung from the cliffs, swaying in the wind. Insects the size of his hand crawled along the rocks, glowing faintly. Every sound seemed louder: the crunch of his steps, the rustle of leaves, the pounding of his heart. He moved slowly, scanning the shadows. A sudden movement made him freeze. Something large had just crossed the path ahead. He knelt and touched the ground, feeling deep impressions in the dirt. The footprint was massive, far larger than any creature he had seen on Veralia. 3 long claws had dug deep into the earth. The hunt had begun. Hours passed, the suns fully set, and only the pale light of Veralia's 2 moons lit the valley. Ryan followed broken branches, deep claw marks, and strange musky scents. Once, he thought he saw glowing eyes in the distance, but they vanished as quickly as they appeared. Suddenly, the air shifted. It was a feeling Ryan knew well. Presence of a predator. Somewhere, something was watching him. His grip on the bone knife tightened. The bushes ahead exploded. A dark shape burst out, moving faster than Ryan thought possible. It was huge, its body low to the ground, scales black as night, its mouth filled with jagged teeth. The Vorath. Ryan dove aside as it slashed at him, its claws cutting deep into the rock where he had stood. The ground shook as the creature roared, the sound echoing off the cliffs like thunder. Ryan's instincts screamed at him to run, but he stayed low, circling. The Vorath's eyes glowed like molten gold. Locked on him, they faced each other in the moonlight. Hunter and hunted, man and legend. Then without warning, the Vorath lunged again. Ryan barely had time to raise his knife before its massive shadow swallowed him whole. Ryan rolled to the side, the Vorath's claws slicing the air where he had been a second earlier. The sound of its roar vibrated through his bones, a deep and powerful growl that felt alive. Dust and broken stones rained down from the cliffs. The night alive with danger, he scrambled to his feet, eyes locked on the shadowy figure before him. The beast's body rippled with muscle under its black scales, its tail whipping through the air like a living whip. The Vorath lowered its head, stalking in a slow circle, watching Ryan the way a cat watches a cornered mouse. Ryan's breath was steady, but his mind was racing. This was no ordinary animal. Every movement showed intelligence, every step calculated. He shifted his stance, keeping the bone knife raised. The valley around them was silent except for the sound of their breathing. Then, without warning, the Vorath darted into the shadows. Ryan spun, searching, his ears straining for the faintest sound. He knew better than to think it had fled. It was hunting him now, testing his reactions, waiting for the perfect strike. He moved forward, slow and careful, each step deliberate. The moonlight spilled over jagged rocks and twisted vines. The air smelled damp and heavy, carrying the scent of earth and blood. A breeze brushed his cheek, and with it came the faintest sound, the scrape of claws against stone. He turned sharply, just in time to see the Vorath leap from a ledge above. It crashed into the ground where he'd been standing. Shaking the earth, Ryan slashed with his knife, the blade grazing the creature's shoulder. The Vorath hissed, its eyes blazing with anger. It stepped back, as if surprised a human had wounded it, even slightly. Ryan took the chance to back away. Deeper into the scarred valley, he knew he couldn't overpower it in a direct fight. Not yet. He needed to learn its habits, its strengths, and more importantly, its weaknesses. The valley seemed to stretch endlessly, a maze of sharp cliffs and narrow paths. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound felt like a warning. As he moved, Ryan's mind drifted back to his days on Earth. He remembered training in the wilderness, learning to track and survive with nothing but his hands and instincts. That training had kept him alive in countless dangerous worlds, but this hunt was different. The Vorath was more than a beast, it was a legend, and legends were never easy to kill. Hours passed as he pushed deeper into the valley. The moonlight shifted, painting the rock silver. Once he found a pile of bones, some animal, some alien, and maybe even human, all stripped clean, all bearing deep claw marks. He crouched, studying them. The Vorath was a skilled killer, and it didn't waste its prey. A sudden rustle made him freeze. From the darkness emerged a smaller predator, its 6 legs clicking against the stones. It hissed and lunged at him, but Ryan sidestepped and drove his knife into its neck. It fell instantly, its body twitching. He dragged it to a clearing, thinking quickly. If the Vorath was watching him, and he was sure it was, then he needed bait. He left the smaller predator's body on the ground, then climbed up onto a ledge above. From there, he waited, his muscles tense. Minutes passed, then the air shifted again. A shadow slipped between the rocks, moving like liquid. The Vorath approached the carcass, sniffing, its golden eyes scanning the darkness. Ryan's heartbeat pounded in his ears. He gripped the rope he had prepared, ready to drop it around the beast's neck. But the Vorath stopped suddenly, its head turning toward him. Those molten eyes locked on his hiding place. With a snarl, it leapt up the cliff toward him. Ryan barely had time to roll aside as its claws smashed into the rock, sending shards flying. The force of the impact nearly knocked him from the ledge. The Vorath clung to the cliffside, its teeth bared. Ryan swung the rope, managing to loop it over the beast's neck. The Vorath roared and thrashed, nearly yanking him off the ledge. Ryan dug his boots into the rock, straining with all his strength. The rope bit into his hands, the fibers cutting his skin. With one last heave, he pulled, forcing the creature to lose its grip. It fell back to the ground with a heavy thud. But before he could react, it rolled to its feet, the rope snapping like a twig under its power. It glared at him, a deep, rumbling growl rising from its chest. Then, to his surprise, it didn't attack. It turned and vanished into the shadows once more. Rayan stood there, breathing hard, knowing. This was far from over. Somewhere in the darkness, the Voroth was watching. The hunt had only just begun. The night in the scarred valley felt endless. Cold winds swept between the jagged cliffs, carrying the distant cries of unseen creatures. Rayan sat crouched behind a cluster of boulders, his muscles sore from the earlier fight. The image of the Voroth's golden eyes lingered in his mind, bright as fire in the dark. It had escaped, but not without learning something, that the human it hunted would not run. Rayan chewed a strip of dried meat, his eyes scanning the moonlit ground. The rope burn on his hands throbbed, small cuts stinging whenever he flexed his fingers. He knew the Voroth would return. Predators like that didn't give up, they adapted. And he needed to be ready for when it came back. The hours passed slowly, each sound amplified in the silence. A rock tumbling in the distance, the faint screech of some winged hunter overhead. Rayan kept low, moving deeper into the valleys. Maze-like paths. He followed the terrain, memorizing every slope, every overhang, every place that could be used as cover or an ambush point. Then it happened. A deep, vibrating growl rolled across the valley. Rayan froze, his knife in hand, his pulse quickening. From the shadows ahead, the Voroth emerged. Its body was low to the ground, its shoulders rolling like a great cat's. Every step was slow and deliberate, claws clicking softly against the rock. In the pale moonlight, Rayan could see it clearly. Now, the Voroth stood nearly twice his height, its frame massive yet built for speed. Its scales shimmered faintly, each one edged like a blade. Two long fangs curved from its upper jaw, and its tail swayed with a slow, deadly rhythm. Rayan didn't move. They stared at each other for several long seconds. Then, without warning, the Voroth lunged. Its speed was terrifying. One moment, it was 10 meters away. The next, its claws were inches from Rayan's chest. He rolled aside, feeling the rush of air as the beast's weight slammed into the ground where he had stood. Rayan came up swinging, slashing his knife across the creature's flank. The blade bit into flesh, leaving a dark line that gleamed in the moonlight. The Voroth snarled, its tail whipping around with the force of a steel cable. It struck Rayan in the side, sending him sprawling into the dirt. Pain shot through his ribs, but he forced himself up, coughing. The beast charged again. Rayan leapt aside, grabbing a loose rock and hurling it at the Voroth's head. The stone bounced harmlessly off its armored skull, but it made the creature pause. That pause was all Rayan needed. He dove forward, aiming for its eyes. The Voroth twisted, snapping its jaws, and Rayan felt the hot rush of its breath. He rolled between its front legs, stabbing upward into the softer skin of its underbelly. The beast roared in pain, rearing back. Its claws raked the ground, sending dirt flying. Rayan scrambled to his feet, backing toward the shelter of a nearby rock wall. The Voroth circled him, its movements slower now, more cautious. Blood dripped from the shallow wound in its belly, but its eyes still burned with rage. It feinted left, then darted right. Testing him, Rayan stayed light on his feet, refusing to be cornered. He remembered the old hunter's advice back on Earth. Make the predator think you're the predator. Rayan made his move, stepping toward the Voroth instead of away. He growled low in his throat, mimicking the sound it had made earlier. For a moment, the beast hesitated, its head tilting slightly. Then it roared again and charged. Rayan met it head-on, diving to the side at the last moment. As it passed, he grabbed one of the jagged vines hanging from the cliff wall. The vine was tough and fibrous, perfect for what he needed. He swung it down across the Voroth's face, startling it. It wasn't enough to hurt, but it made the beast blink. That blink was the gap he had been waiting for. Rayan rushed forward, tackling the Voroth around the neck, his arms locked, his legs braced against the ground. The beast thrashed violently, its muscles like iron beneath his grip. Ryan held on, his knife poised just above its throat. For a heartbeat, it was man against monster, locked in raw, primal struggle. Then the Voroth twisted with incredible force, throwing Ryan aside like a rag doll. He hit the ground hard, his vision blurring. When he managed to focus again, the beast was standing a few steps away. It stared at him, chest heaving, as if reconsidering the fight. Then, without another sound, it turned and disappeared into the dark once more. Ryan lay there, catching his breath. He hadn't killed it, but he had survived a direct clash. And in that moment, he realized something. The Voroth wasn't just trying to kill him, it was testing him. And that meant this hunt was far from over. The cold night air clung to Ryan's skin as he stood at the edge of a narrow canyon inside the scarred valley. Every muscle in his body ached from the earlier fight, but his mind was sharper than ever. He knew now that the Voroth was not going to attack recklessly again. It had tested him, and seeing that he was not weak prey, that meant the rules of this hunt had changed. The predator was no longer simply chasing him. It was studying him, and in doing so, it had turned Ryan's hunt into something far more dangerous. Now he was not only the hunter, but also the hunted. The canyon walls loomed high above, trapping him in shadow. A thin mist curled across the rocky ground, clinging to his boots. The silence was so deep it felt unnatural. No insects clicked. No distant creatures called. It was as if the entire valley was holding its breath. Ryan tightened his grip on the bone knife. His eyes darted from one shadow to another. Every flicker of movement made his pulse quicken. He remembered survival training from years ago. When the forest goes silent, the predator's already near. Something moved above him, a faint scrape of claws against stone. He looked up just in time to see the silhouette of the Voroth on the canyon rim, its body low, head down, golden eyes gleaming like twin suns in the darkness. Then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. Ryan's breathing slowed. It was circling. It would try to drive him into a vulnerable spot. He decided not to give it that chance. He moved quickly but silently, following the canyon floor until he reached a place where the rocks split into two paths. He chose the narrow one. The walls pressed in closer here, forcing him to walk sideways in some places. Above, he could hear faint scratching. The Voroth was tracking him from the cliffs. He quickened his pace, searching for a wider area where he could stand his ground. A gust of wind carried a strong scent, musky and metallic. It was the Voroth, close, too close. Ryan's heartbeat pounded. In his ears, he reached a small clearing where the moonlight spilled through a gap in the cliffs. Here, he could see better, and more importantly, fight if he had to. He crouched low, pulling a jagged piece of stone from the ground. It was heavy, perfect for smashing if the beast got close enough. Minutes passed like hours. The mist curled in around him, and every muscle in his body screamed for action. Then it came. A blur of black scales and muscle burst from the mist. Ryan swung the stone with all his strength. It connected with the side of the Voroth's head, sending a shockwave through his arms. The creature roared, stumbling slightly, but recovered in an instant. It lunged, claws flashing. Ryan rolled aside, feeling the ground shake as the beast landed. He slashed with the bone knife, catching it across the shoulder. The Voroth twisted and whipped its tail, the impact slamming into Ryan's legs and knocking him down. Before he could rise, the beast was on him. Its massive jaws snapped, inches from his face, the hot breath filling his lungs with the stench of blood and raw meat. Ryan shoved the knife upward, pressing it against the softer skin of its jaw. The Voroth snarled and jerked back, giving him just enough space to scramble to his feet. They circled each other in the moonlight. The Voroth's movements were slower now, more deliberate. It was toying with him, driving him toward the canyon wall. Ryan's back hit stone, and he knew he had only one choice left: fight with everything he had. As the Voroth charged, Ryan stepped forward instead of back. He grabbed the beast's foreleg with both hands, twisting with every ounce of strength. The motion threw the Vorath off balance for just a heartbeat. Ryan used that moment to leap onto its back. His arms locked around its neck as it bucked and thrashed. Trying to throw him off, it crashed into the canyon wall, scraping his shoulder against the rock. Pain flared, but he held on. He could feel its heartbeat pounding under his hands. This close. He could see scars along its scales, marks from past battles. This was a creature that had survived everything nature and hunters had thrown at it. Finally, with a violent shake, the Vorath sent him flying to the ground. Ryan rolled to a stop, coughing. The beast stood over him, chest heaving, its golden eyes locked on his. For a moment, neither moved. Then the Vorath stepped back into the mist and was gone. Ryan lay there, staring up at the sliver of moonlight above. He knew this was far from the end. The Vorath was still out there, and now it knew everything about how he fought. The next encounter would be even deadlier. Asterisk. The first light of Aurelia's twin suns broke over the jagged cliffs, painting the scarred valley in shades of gold and red. Ryan's body ached from the endless struggle of the night, but his mind refused to rest. The Vorath was still out there, somewhere in the maze of shadows and stone. But as the cold mist faded under the morning sun, he noticed something new. Drops of dark blood on the rocky ground. They were fresh, leading away from the canyon where they had last clashed. Ryan followed the trail cautiously. The Vorath was dangerous even when wounded. Every step took him deeper into a part of the valley he had not yet explored. Here, the cliffs were higher, the air thicker, and strange twisted plants reached from the ground like claws. The sound of running water echoed nearby. He moved toward it, keeping low. The trail led to a small pool at the base of a waterfall. Mist sparkled in the sunlight, and there, crouched at the water's edge, was the Vorath. Its head was lowered. Drinking, the dark scales along its side were smeared with dried blood. The wound on its shoulder from Ryan's knife was worse than he expected. The skin around it was swollen and cracked. Ryan stood still, hidden behind a large boulder. He could end it now, one quick strike while it was weak. But something in the way the Vorath moved stopped him. It was slower, unsteady, its breaths deep and ragged. For the first time, he didn't see a monster. He saw a creature fighting to survive. Without thinking, Ryan stepped into the open. The Vorath's head snapped up. Eyes blazing, it growled, a low warning rumble. Ryan kept his hands where it could see them, speaking in a calm voice. "I'm not here to fight," he said softly. Though he knew it wouldn't understand the words, the beast's eyes narrowed. It took a step back, claws scraping against the stone. Ryan reached into his pack and pulled out a strip of dried meat. He tossed it onto the ground between them. The Vorath sniffed the air, but didn't move. Ryan knelt, slowly, carefully, from his pack. He took a small roll of alien fabric he had found in the village, strong, soft, and used for binding wounds. He also pulled out a gourd filled with clean water. The Vorath watched him with unblinking eyes. Its tail flicked once, twice then. To Ryan's surprise, it took a slow step forward. It stopped just short of the dried meat. Still wary, Ryan didn't move. After a long moment, the beast lowered its head and ate the offering in one bite. Its golden eyes never left him. Then it sat back slightly, still tense, but no longer growling. Ryan took this as a chance. He moved closer, inch by inch, speaking in the same calm tone. When he was within arm's reach, he could feel the heat of its body. The wound on its shoulder was worse up close, the cut deep and angry. Carefully, he poured water over it. The Vorath tensed, a low growl rumbling. But it didn't strike. Ryan worked quickly, cleaning the wound and wrapping it with the alien fabric. Every movement was slow, deliberate. The Vorath's breathing stayed steady. It watched him with those molten eyes, and he couldn't tell if it was judging him or simply curious. When he finished, he stepped back, giving it space. The Vorath tested the bandage with a small movement of its leg. Then it looked at him, not with the same cold hunger as before. This look was different, cautious, but no longer purely hostile. Over the next hours, they stayed near the waterfall. Ryan fished small creatures from the stream and left them on the rock. The Voroth ate them all, though it never let him get too close again. Once, a shadow passed overhead, a huge flying predator diving toward them. Ryan grabbed his knife and stood ready, but the Voroth moved faster. It leapt into the air, its claws slicing through the winged beast before it could strike. The carcass fell at Ryan's feet. They both stood there, breathing hard. The Voroth glanced at him, almost as if checking he was unharmed. Ryan nodded slightly. The bond was forming, though neither fully understood it. As the suns began to set, Ryan stood and shouldered his pack. The Voroth followed at a distance as he made his way out of the clearing. When they reached a narrow pass between two cliffs, the beast stopped. It let out a low rumble, not of threat, but of something else, a sound Ryan could only describe as acceptance. They had started as enemies. Now in some strange way, they were allies. The scarred valley was still full of danger, but Ryan no longer walked through it alone. The path back to Kuratal was long and winding, cutting through rocky passes and narrow ridges. Ryan walked steadily, the Voroth trailing behind like a shadow. Every few steps, the beast would stop and lift its head, scanning the horizon. It was strange. Just days ago, it had been hunting him. Now it moved as if guarding him, its golden eyes sharp and alert. When the alien village came into view, the reaction was instant. Shouts erupted. Children ran for their homes, and warriors grabbed their weapons. The sight of the legendary Voroth walking beside a human was something no one could have imagined. Ryan stopped just outside the village gate, raising his hands. "I'm not here to bring danger," he called out, his voice carrying across the open space. The alien chief stepped forward, his face set in stone, his black eyes locked on the Voroth. "This creature has brought death to our hunters for generations," the chief said slowly. "And now you bring it into our home?" Ryan took a breath. "It is not here to harm you," he replied. "It fought beside me. It saved my life." Murmurs spread among the crowd. Some aliens looked curious, others terrified. One older hunter stepped forward, shaking his head. "No beast like that can be trusted," he said, "unless it has been tested." The chief nodded. "A test will decide," he said firmly. "If the beast is truly your ally, it will help you complete the trial of the chieftain." Ryan's brow furrowed. "What's the trial?" he asked. The chief's voice grew heavy. "You must journey to the Deadlands and bring back the moonstone flowers that bloom only under the full moons. They grow in a place guarded by the Gornek, a predator feared even by the Voroth." Ryan glanced at the beast beside him. The Voroth's tail flicked once, its gaze steady. It did not back away. Ryan gave a small nod. "Then we'll bring them back," he said. The next morning, they set out before dawn. The Deadlands were far beyond the scarred valley, across barren plains of cracked earth. The suns beat down, the air dry and biting. The Voroth moved with ease, its massive paws silent even on the brittle ground. Ryan followed its lead, trusting its instincts. Hours later, the ground began to change. Dark stones jutted from the earth, and the air carried a strange metallic taste. In the distance, Ryan could see the faint glow of the moonstone flowers. They shimmered like silver fire under the twin moons. But between them and the flowers lay something massive. The Gornek. It was even larger than the Voroth, with thick armored plates covering its body and jaws that could crush stone. Its eyes glowed a deep crimson, and its breath came in slow, rumbling growls. It stood perfectly still, guarding the field of flowers. Ryan crouched low, whispering under his breath. "This thing's even uglier than you," he muttered toward the Voroth. The beast didn't react. Its eyes locked on the Gornek. It stepped forward, its body low. Ryan followed, circling to the left, hoping to distract the monster. The Gornek's head turned, its crimson eyes fixing on Ryan. It roared, the sound shaking the ground. In that instant, the Voroth charged. The two titans collided with a force that made the air explode with dust and debris. Claws scraped against armor, Teeth snapped against scales. Ryan sprinted toward the flowers. He grabbed as many as he could, stuffing them carefully into his pack. Behind him, the battle raged, the Gornak snapping its jaws, the Voroth striking again and again. The ground trembled under their weight. Ryan turned just in time to see the Gornak rear back, ready to crush the Voroth under its massive bulk without thinking. Ryan grabbed a jagged spear of black stone from the ground and hurled it with all his strength. It struck the Gornak's eye, making it roar in pain. That was all the Voroth needed. It lunged, its jaws clamping down on the creature's neck. The two crashed to the ground in a storm of dust. When the air cleared, the Gornak lay still. The Voroth limped toward Ryan, blood staining its scales. Ryan reached out, resting a hand on its shoulder. "Let's go home," he said quietly. They made their way back to the village under the light of the moons, the flowers safe in Ryan's pack when they arrived. The chief took the flowers in his hands. He looked from Ryan to the Voroth and back again. "You have passed the trial," he said, his voice carrying pride and respect. "From this day forward, you are blood brother of Veralia." The villagers bowed their heads, and for the first time in living memory, the Voroth walked through Koratal without fear or hatred following it. The village of Koratal had never been so alive. Fires burned bright in the night, casting warm light across the stone walls. The air was filled with the sound of drums and the scent of roasting meat. Ryan stood beside the Voroth, near the central fire. Every villager who passed looked at them with a mix of awe and gratitude. The chief had declared him blood brother of Veralia. It was a title of honor given only to those who had done the impossible. But even as the celebrations grew louder, Ryan's eyes kept scanning the horizon. Old instincts told him peace never lasted long, and he was right. Just as the moons reached their highest point, a horn echoed from the edge of the valley. It was not a call of celebration, but a warning. Warriors rushed to the gates, their weapons ready. Ryan followed, the Voroth moving like a dark shadow beside him. Beyond the walls, torches glimmered in the night. Dozens, maybe hundreds. The chief's face was grim. "Raiders," he said, his voice low. "They come from the far plains, taking what they want, leaving nothing alive." Ryan's jaw tightened. He had seen raiders like this before on other worlds. They would kill without mercy. He turned to the Voroth, meeting its golden gaze. "This is our fight now," he said. Quietly, the gates of Koratal swung open. Ryan stepped forward with the Voroth at his side. The raiders saw them and laughed at first. To them, one man and one beast looked like nothing compared to their numbers. That laughter faded when the Voroth roared, the sound shaking the ground. The first wave of raiders charged. Ryan moved fast, ducking under a blade and striking with his bone knife. The Voroth slammed into three at once, its claws tearing through armor like it was cloth. The air filled with the clash of metal, the roar of the beast, and the shouts of warriors. Ryan fought like a storm, his movements sharp and relentless. Every time an enemy tried to flank him, the Voroth was there. Striking from the side, they moved as one, like they had trained together for years. Blood stained the dirt, torches fell and sputtered. Still, the raiders kept coming. A massive raider leader stepped forward, wielding a blade as long as Ryan's arm. He pointed it at the Voroth, shouting in a language Ryan didn't know. Then he charged. The Voroth met him head-on. They clashed in a burst of strength and fury, the raider's blade scraping across its scales. Ryan saw another raider rushing toward the beast's unguarded side. Without hesitation, he dove in, tackling the attacker and driving his knife into his chest. The Voroth threw the leader to the ground with a bone-shaking thud. When Ryan looked up, the raider forces were breaking. Fear was spreading through their ranks. The few who remained fled into the night. The Voroth roared one last time, its voice echoing through the valley. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the crackle of dying torches. Ryan stood there, breathing hard. The Voroth limped slightly, but its eyes burned bright. When they returned to the village, The people cheered so loudly the cliffs themselves seemed to carry the sound. The chief stepped forward, placing a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "You and the Voroth have saved us," he said. "This will be remembered for generations." Ryan looked at the beast beside him. It had started as the most feared creature in the land. Now it was the village's protector. The bond between them was something no one could explain. It was built on blood, survival, and trust. As the night wore on, Ryan stood at the edge of the village, watching the stars. The Voroth stood beside him, silent and still. In the distance, the wild land stretched endlessly. He knew their story wasn't over. The galaxy was full of dangers, and somewhere out there, greater challenges waited. The Voroth lifted its head and let out a long, deep roar. It wasn't a sound of anger or threat. It was a promise. Ryan smiled, the firelight glinting in his eyes. Together, they had faced the impossible and lived. In the years to come, travelers would tell the tale of the human who caught the toughest creature to hunt with his bare hands, and of the beast who chose to walk beside him instead of killing him. They would speak of their battles, their victories, and their unshakable bond. And in the scarred valley, on quiet nights, the echo of that roar would still be heard, a reminder that legends never truly die. Asterisk.